Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'm going to do a little different kind of video for you. I'm going to do one on a specific technique. And this technique involves embossing. And I'm going to show the traditional way that we all have seen people do embossing on videos, and then I'm going to show you two alternative ways to emboss that's going to allow you to emboss your cards in any color that you choose. This is part of the inside of a card that I did recently called Artistically Asian Friendship Card. And this was the inside of the card, and it had this pretty little chrysanthemum and a nice sentiment here. And so what I'm going to do is show the traditional method for doing this embossing, and I'm going to then show you how to do it two different ways, and then we're going to do it in some different inks to help you understand that there are lots of ways to approach this, and some of them a lot more user-friendly. Now, when I did this video, I did it using black embossing powder, and in fact I said it's terrifying using black embossing powder because black embossing powder does go everywhere and it can make a real mess. And in fact, the people in my class had a difficult time because I think the heat tool was pushing after they cleaned up their cards, got all the black embossing powder on. When they turned on the heat tool, sometimes black embossing powder pieces went all over and they ended up with speckles on their cards. And so what I'm going to show is the typical way, in fact the way that I did it on that card. And I have here the little chrysanthemum flower, so I'm going to reduplicate this here. And in fact I don't need my black ink for this one. For this one I would just use Versamark, first of all my embossing buddy of course, to get the best chance of using embossing powder and not having bits of your embossing all over. Now this applies specifically to color. For a while we've had red embossing powder and green during the holidays, and we did have black, which is why I have black, and the black has since retired, and I didn't realize that when I made this card. So what I'm going to do is what we do traditionally, and that is to ink up my image in Versamark, place it on my card, and in fact put my sentiment here, and then that's by virtue of a dirty Versamark pad. But since I'm doing this in black, it doesn't really matter much. And so there I'm using my black embossing powder, and I've got, I think, pretty good images on there of that. Then I'm going to close this up and move the black embossing powder out of the way, and using my heat tool I am going to hold down my card and emboss this image. So this will be a little noisy. Okay, and so there you can see I have perfectly embossed images of my sentiment and my chrysanthemum. Now I'm going to bring in another piece of card, and I'm going to do that exact same scheme, but I'm going to change how I do it. We're not going to use black embossing powder. So for this next technique, what I need is nothing more then the color ink you want to use, and in this case it's black. So I'll put my black ink down here, my image here, and the thing I'm going to use instead is clear embossing powder. So I'm going to set this clear embossing powder up out of the way for the moment, and I'm going to clean off my stamp here, and I'm going to ink up my stamp. Lots of ink. And I'm going to place this image down here in the corner. And very quickly, before the ink has a chance to dry, I am going to get clear embossing powder over that inked image. And I want to show you right here, see how it's kind of grayed out? And that's because the clear embossing powder is stuck to the damp ink. So now I'm going to do this again. I'm going to emboss this piece. Okay, and there we have our embossed flower, virtually no different than the embossed flower using the black embossing powder. Do you see how that worked? So now there is yet another technology, another method, if you will, of doing this. And I had to be very quick to get my wet ink into my clear embossing powder to get it covered. Now, if you don't want to take that chance, the other thing you can do is take your image, in this case the sentiment, and we're going to do a three-step process. I am going to put, in fact, I'm going to clean up a little bit of that black in there. I am going to stamp first into Versamark, then I'm going to tap into my ink until I have plenty of ink on my message, and then I'm going to place that image on my card. There we have it. Looks like a regular stamped image, but now I don't have to rush because I've got Versamark on there. And I'm just going to put some clear embossing powder, and you see I get that same grayed out image that I showed before with the clear embossing powder sticking to what we're doing here. So I'm going to close these up, and I'm going to heat emboss this sentiment. And there we go. We have our image heat embossed, and it is no different than the heat embossed image using the black powder. And then one has to ask himself, why would you use black powder if there's all of these other techniques? Unfortunately, not everybody knows about the other techniques and so doesn't know to do something a bit different. Now what I'm going to do is show you how you can do that with any color of ink. So I have here, and it works out pretty well. I'm going to use my embossing buddy on this panel, and I'm going to use two different techniques on the same piece, again, so you can see how little difference there is. Now here is the Daisy stamp from the Daisy Delight, and what we're going to do is I'm going to select Pool Party here, and I'm going to take the Pool Party ink, and I'm going to do that first technique again. I am going to put Pool Party ink get it nice and inked up on my paper here and get a good image down. And then as quickly as I can, I'm going to dip that into the clear embossing powder and get all of my image covered. So there you see again that kind of grayed out look. Now I'm going to use my heat tool and emboss those petals. Okay, and there, I'll move this around in the light so you can see, is an embossed set of petals for the daisy. Now I'm going to clean up my stamp here, and what we're going to do is use the third technique again, and I'm going to put Versamark on this daisy first. Then I'm going to tap this into the ink to make sure I've got coverage, and I'm going to add the second set of petals to this image. There we go. Now there's no hurry because my ink doesn't have to dry because I used Versamark. And I'm going to take this to my clear embossing powder, and I'm going to cover those petals that I just stamped. And you can see that again it's kind of grayed out. Now I'm going to heat emboss and there I'm going to show you that you have a perfectly heat embossed daisy in Pool Party. And we didn't use any embossing powder. So virtually you can get an embossed image, embossed words, and in fact maybe what I'll do on the bottom of here is use another stamp that I just happen to have out for a card I just recently made. This one says, "Have a beautiful birthday." And what I'm going to do there is do that same technique using Versamark first. And for illustration, I'm going to do that one in this Tangerine Tango. Not really making a card here, but who knows, maybe we'll love it. And tap that into the Tangerine Tango ink and put that down here on the bottom of the card. And get that moved out of the way. And there we have a beautiful birthday. And I'm going to put the clear embossing powder over the top of that sentiment. And move that embossing powder out of the way now. And we're going to heat set this sentiment. And there you have your sentiment heat embossed on your card. And so literally you can emboss in any color you would like. And I think that is a wonderful thing to keep in mind because it gives you yet another dimension. Now, I did have one person ask me about this. Does using the Versamark on your stamp first and then putting it on your stamp pad get your ink surface gooey because of the Versamark ink? And the answer is, for whatever reason, no. It leaves no residue. And maybe it's because you pick up ink immediately, and then as you tap it, you're only tapping ink onto ink. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to affect the stamp pads in any way. And so there is my technique thought for the day. And I'm going to, from time to time, put a video together that shows a different kind of technique or a different way of doing things, so it can expand what you can do in making your cards. Now, I hope you enjoyed that video, and thank you so much for stopping by and watching my YouTube channel. By way of information, I do a prize draw every month, and the prize draw from July is a 3-pack of designer series paper, the delightful Daisy designer series paper, the whole lot of lovely designer series paper, and the I can't remember exactly the name, the eclectic paper. They're all beautiful. Look them up on the catalog. It's a $33 value in the catalog, and so the prize draw will be those 3 packs of designer series paper for July. Another thing that's happening with Stampin' Up! Is in July, for every $50 you spend in Stampin' Up! Products, they're going to give you a coupon for $5, and there's no limit on these coupons. You can accumulate as many of them as you want. This might be a good time to store up on supplies and put in a healthy order, because then in August you can redeem those coupons for free or reduced price products. And you just put in coupon number after coupon number in August, and it deducts from the price you're paying for your supplies. So it's a great deal, and hopefully you'll get a chance to take advantage of it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, and or you could join my team. Details for that are always listed below. And so until next time, bye!